Hello, all, and welcome to this afternoon's beer review. Just another lazy Friday evening. Um, yeah, did no chores today. I'm lazy. I might do some after, a beer or two or three and dinner. But yeah. So, what are we reviewing today? Well, we are reviewing this. This is a gift from my friend and my dad's coworker, Randall Lim. And this is from Kalihi Beer, formerly known as Broken Boundary Brewery. And why did they change their name to Kalihi Beer? Well, Broken Boundary is the translation. Hawaiian is the English translation of the Hawaiian word Kalihi. Um, Kalihi is actually a neighborhood of Honolulu. It is a decidedly rough neighborhood. In other words, it's not the kind of place that you go and leave your car parked after dark. That said, it is kind of a core territory of Honolulu. Both sides of my family kind of have their roots there in the rougher blue collar working class neighborhoods of Kalihi, though they moved out as soon as they could. And so Kalihi beer is, of course, a brewery that started up in the neighborhood of Kalihi. And it's right next door to the only homebrew supply store in the state. I'm not sure if, they're owned or operated by the same guy or not. I would believe so if they're like right next to each other. But yeah, so this is one of the newer breweries here in Hawaii, and they've started canning beer for distribution. Now, according to Randall, he saw this at Tamura's. I haven't seen this at Tamura's yet, but I don't go to any of the bigger Tamura's. Ironically, even though I kind of live by the largest Tamura's, it's just got like a really tiny postage stamp size lot, so I kind of avoid going there. Um, so yeah, this is a Kolsch. It is a 5.4 ABV beer made in Hawaii. And yes, let's read the back now, shall we? Respect for tradition, authentic innovation. When you're setting off on an unknown adventure with your pop top Westie loaded with gear for any occasion, that would be this kind of vehicle here, sort of like a camper, Volkswagen Westphalia camper, which were very common among surfers back in the day. Now only wealthy people own them because they are old cars that are lovingly restored. But back in the day, it was like sort of a surfer ride. Where was I? Loaded with gear for any occasion, you need a beer, versatile enough for any occasion. Inspired by the great traditions of brewing at North Rhineland, Westphalia, and the city of Cologne, or as it's more better known in English, Cologne, in northwest Germany, this pale ale is made with a special ale yeast that ferments at lager temperatures, creating a beer that's crisper than a pale ale but more flavorful than a lager. Truly a beer for every adventure. Now, of course, as I've mentioned in previous reviews, Kolsch is one of my favorite beer styles. However, I must say, it is a fairly narrow beer style. So I've already kind of tasted one of the cans. I always taste two cans. So we're going to go and see here what I mean by that. So without much further ado, let's just go and pour this one out. Okay, fairly lightly carbonated. yellow-orange, slight haziness to it, with a thin, kind of fizzy white head. I really wish I poured this a bit more vigorously. Yeah, so you're getting kind of the various Kolsch notes that you should be getting. Kind of fruity, slight white wine kind of notes there. Sort of grassy, herbaceous hopping. But all in all, fairly muted because it's pretty cold, and also the head is like pretty gone by now. I really should have poured it a little bit more vigorously. And again, as you can see, there's carbonation there, but you know, it's not as vigorous as some. Okay. So it definitely smells to style there. You know, kind of cut pear, cut apple, white wine. You know, with grassy herbaceous hops. Okay, on to the palate now, shall we? Up front, you definitely get, you know, very much those Kolsch flavor notes. Kind of juicy fruitiness. Backed up by a slight hop bitterness that is pretty minimal in the front, but rises in the mids and into the finish. Again, not as sharp or bracing as a Pilsner would be, nor as aromatic as a pale ale would be in regards to hopping. Now, remember when I said Kolsch or Kolsch style? More, I should go and say, because Kolsch is a protected demonym for the beers of Koln. So Kolsch style is fairly narrow style. You know, it's not broad in its definition of what it should taste like, what it should smell like. And in this particular beer, in the mids and into the finish, there emerges a sort of woody, herbaceous, slightly smoky note that just kind of booms right out there in the mids and then disappears in the finish, leaving a clean finish. But it really booms out there in the mids. And it's really quite jarring, because it's kind of coming up in a very it really is the strongest taste note in this beer. That sort of woody, herbaceous woody, slightly smoky, herbaceous woodiness. I have no idea what caused that taste to emerge in this beer, but it is not something. It is not a tasting note that you would find in a Kolsch. Now, I don't know if this was purposeful or if it's some sort of minor brewing flaw, because as off notes go, it's not particularly off-putting per se. It's not making me gag or anything like that. It's just really, really different from the rest of the beer, which, if you remove that particular taste note, would be a kind of mid-range Kolsch, something I would prefer a little bit more boomy in the fruit notes, but it has like that one taste note there in the midst to finish. And like I said, I don't know if this was purposeful or what generated it, whether it was some part of the fermentation or the malt being used. That said, you know, yeah, I don't like that taste note. It, it's kind of distracting me from the rest of this beer, like I said, which is a serviceable Kolsch style ale. Of course, like I said, it might, when I sat down and thought about it, it was like, well, is that a aesthetic choice by the beer maker? I mean, they are harkening back to the Volkswagen Westphalia, which, was wood paneled in its original incarnation. So maybe they did incorporate some sort of malt in there and kind of emphasize a woody note, you know, woody herbaceous note. But it's not something that I expect nor desire in a Kolsch style ale. So yeah, I haven't had any other beers from this company. Like I said, they're fairly recent. They opened up during the pandemic and luckily survived. There's so many businesses that were just wiped out by the pandemic. And I wonder if this is going to get the video like, well, I'm not monetized, but I've heard, just as a slight side note, I heard like people like complaining that YouTube goes and demonetizes videos that say the word pandemic, which is just like bizarre to me. But anyways, yeah. Um, give this a try if you're interested. It wasn't my particular cup of tea. I am, however, going through their website, I am, however, interested in trying some of their other beers. Probably ones that don't make it to the canning line. There's like one that sounds really interesting, like an English strong ale, that uses like jaggery brown sugar. That sounds something right up my alley. Um, and it's always nice to go to Kalihi in the daytime. In the daytime, So yeah, there's a lot of great restaurants there. Great cheap restaurants. Like Kalihi, like Chinatown has a lot of great hole in the wall restaurants. But like I said, if you're a visitor to Hawaii, don't take your rental car there. Don't go there after dark, unless you know where you're going per se. Like I wouldn't feel afraid because I still have relatives that live in Kalihi Valley. I have no fear going and visiting their house because I know that area of the neighborhood. But it's like when you get to the business districts, yeah, it's a little bit more dicey. But yeah, Kalihi beer, pop top, Kolsch. A serviceable Kolsch with a very weird note to it. I'm not sure if it's an off note or a purposeful, but looking at the other beers, I want to support local beer. So yeah, I'm interested in trying other things from this brewery, even if this particular beer wasn't my cup of tea. And that, folks, is your beer review for this afternoon to evening. Cheers.